What part of coloring do you struggle with the most? Whenever I ask this question, I get a lot of the same answer from people at every skill level. What's your greatest weakness? Choosing colors. And here's the thing. When students say choosing colors, I don't think they mean choosing markers or pencils for blending combinations. They mean choosing colors for color palettes. So today, let's do it. Let's talk about how color palettes are created, and by the end of this video, we will make several color palettes completely from scratch. I make these videos for people who appreciate a little honesty. Rainbows and unicorns can only get you so far. See, I've been teaching classes for like a dozen years now, but I have spent twice that amount of time in classes myself. And to be honest, I have never really learned all that much when the instructor says, just go play, have fun. I appreciate it when an instructor looks over my shoulder and they say, what you're doing is good, but here's how to do it better or faster or easier. So when students tell me they want to learn more about color selection, I agree. It's one of the biggest weaknesses that I see in the coloring world today, but I don't think it's your fault. Most of you learned how to color from free tutorials, or you buy classes where everyone follows the same step-by-step instructions. And some of you have learned to color by trying to copy the work or the style of another colorist you admire, which is okay for learning the basics, but it's also why you struggle to select colors for your own projects. Because here's the thing, in a formal art class, the instructor will not pick out colors for you. Even if there's a class supply list, the instructor isn't going to come along and say, use phthalo blue like right here, and then over here you should be using alizarin crimson. Nope, you're expected to make color decisions for yourself, which basically means that I have spent years making bad color choices, which is good. Because over the years, I have failed so much that I slowly started to figure out how not to fail. But the tutorial system is like a parent who hovers over their toddler as they learn to walk, always catching them before they fall. If you never fall, you never learn how to get back up. And that's the problem we have in coloring. You never fall because someone picks the best colors for you and then shows you exactly where to use them. So today's lesson is all about how to fall with color. At first, it's going to be hard and you're going to make some bad decisions, but eventually the process will start to click. And with enough failing and getting back up to try again, you'll be choosing colors on your own like a pro. Okay, so my first piece of advice, it kind of goes against something that's pretty popular right now. If you want to get better at color selection, please do not take a color theory class. Now, I teach color theory, so for me to tell you not to take color theory, that's not the smartest move I've ever made. But here's the thing. You hear the word color in color theory, and you know you have color issues. So you get it into your head that if you read up on color theory, it's going to solve all your problems. For those of you who have already done this, did it work? Nope. Color theory is a complete waste of time and money if you haven't already spent years falling and failing. If color theory sounds like complete garbledy-goop, and if your eyes glaze over when I point to 15 different spots on the color wheel, you're not ready for color theory yet. Color theory makes total sense, and it'll be endlessly fascinating, but only after you've spent years making bad color decisions. When you finally see the reasons why a project failed, this is when the light bulb flicks on and you'll say, "Oh, that's what I keep doing wrong." But you can't start with color theory, just like we don't teach you to drive in the Daytona 500. You've got to have some experience under your belt. Color theory teaches you to use color better. It doesn't teach you how to use color. Okay, so where should you start? Because if you're watching this video, you're probably sick of the results that you get when you just grab colors as needed. And unfortunately, that's really how most colorists work. You pick some line art or you sketch a little scene, and then you color it object by object. Trees are green, so you color the Christmas tree green. Then you color the ornaments red and blue. But there's too many ornaments, so you add some yellow ones. And there's still even more left, so you throw in a purple or two. And you haven't used pink yet, so maybe that'll be good in the background? Coloring on demand is what got you to this video. The simple answer is you need a plan. And I know you need a plan. But that feels forced, and honestly, you barely have time to color. I don't think you want to waste it developing a 10-step master coloring plan. When you say you struggle with choosing colors, what you're really asking is how to plan, but honestly, it's more like how to plan without wasting time. When I think back, I can't remember an art teacher ever giving a lesson on how to plan. It's not something written in textbooks, and it was never on a course syllabus. I'm really fuzzy on how I learned this, and that's not usual for me. I think it's just something that junior artists learn by watching senior artists work. And you and I are not working side by side every day in the same studio. It's also not something you'll see here on YouTube, because nobody wants to sit and watch me think for 39.5 minutes. So here's the first step you never see. And this might sound like a total get off my lawn kind of moment, but I've noticed a shift in arts and in the crafting world over the years. It kind of seems like everyone's all wrapped up and focused on using art to say something. There's a message to everything now, whether you're saying something political or you're saying happy birthday to Jeffrey Jr., it's all about the message. Even if the message is,
I'm using art for therapy and I relax by playing with color,
that's a message too. But here's the thing. If everything is about saying what you want to say, you're missing the most important part of art. Art is about showing us what you see. The seeing part of art is not talked about often enough. Natural-born artists are visual magpies. I cannot remember a time where I wasn't ripping photos out of magazines and saving them for later. Now I fill my cell phone with weird photos of pretty colors or when the light strikes something in an interesting way. It's a collection of visual references, and all artists do this in some way. Even if we never use the clipping or the snapshot, the act of noticing and collecting visual references, that sharpens our observation instincts and our skills. Being an artist, well, it's all about being weird. My husband is totally used to me doing dumb stuff like staring at an old banana for 10 minutes because I'm amazed by the color. So, the first part of your color palette planning has to begin with days, months, or even years of observing the colors of life around you. If you don't have massive amounts of input, you're going to struggle with the output. You've got to start paying attention to the colors and the color interactions in your daily life if you're ever going to show us what you see. And that might mean becoming the oddball who sits alone outside at lunch, or you're the only person not staring at your phone when standing in line. To use color, you have to see how color is used. You gotta make color observation a gigantic part of your life. Okay, so that's a long-term goal. But how about planning for the project that's on your desk right now? Well, I start every project by talking to Mr. Google. First, I'm gathering color input, but I'm also gathering references and I'm correcting my dead wrong assumptions. It's reality check time. So as I look through the search engine results, one of the things I immediately noticed, and this is a great reminder at Christmas, is that if you had asked me to pick markers to color something gold, well, I know most people would grab a bunch of yellow markers, but me, I try to be clever with my old standby YR23. But Mr. Google says I'm wrong. Real gold is a softer yellow than that. It's more brown than yellow or yellow-orange. Photo references keep you from making mistakes that look fake to everyone else. For things like this ornament project, I'm really going to focus my search on home decor trends because we can steal some of these ideas. Christmas decorations are home decor. If you wouldn't decorate your living room with this color palette, then why would you ask someone else to decorate their living room with your Christmas art? An all-ivory Christmas tree, maybe with fur and knit textured ornaments, that could make your Christmas card something that people keep and display again and again for years because it's beautiful and artistic and unique. I also discovered a total cheat code when doing this. Look up assorted ornament sets. That's a built-in color palette right there, and if it's for sale on the store's homepage, then it's totally in line with the current popular Christmas color trends. And while we're on the subject of color palettes worth stealing, card makers, oh my gosh, you guys are so lucky. I was amazed when I started teaching at a scrapbook store because that whole shop was full of amazing color palettes. Pre-printed decorative papers are the ultimate color palette hack. They show you which colors to use, what the background color should be, which colors to use most, and which ones to just sprinkle here and there. You don't even have to use the paper, just borrow the color palette. If we're talking about borrowing color palettes, I should mention color palette resources. There are color palette apps and color generator sites, and I happen to love my color cubes. But here's the weird thing. I don't use these resources as much as you'd think. Don't get me wrong, I highly recommend the cube. It's a great source of inspiration, and it's fun to play the game where you pull out a random card and figure out how to use it. And you can learn a lot from studying the palettes here. You can learn what makes for a good color palette and why other ones don't quite appeal to you. I'll link on the resource page to the cubes because I think you should totally have this tool. But as I was saying, well, okay, see here, this whole back section of my box, these are palettes that I really love and I want to use them someday. There's great value in here, but I don't use it as much as I ought to because it feels like, well, okay, it's kind of like back when I was little, playing house and being the mom. This box feels like picking out your future children's names when you're still only 10 years old. I may never have a reason to use half of this. And honestly, my kids today would be pretty pissed at me if I had named them Bo, Luke, and Daisy. The needs of the project must come before the color palette. So using a prepared palette is, at best, it's a retrofit. Also, some color palettes are pretty, but they're not terribly useful. A palette like this where it's 4 values of the same color, it's pretty, but it's not helpful. I mean, this is a Copic blending combination that we'd be using anyway. It's not telling us anything we didn't already know. And 6 random colors will look cool when you see them next to the inspiration photo. But if I just slapped these 6 colors on 6 ornaments, it'll look unplanned because these colors make sense here, but not here. Now, what I end up doing most of the time is starting from nothing, following the needs of the project in front of me. So let's make our own color palettes from scratch. Here's the method that I teach students. And now I'm kind of wondering if I have ever taught this in an online class. But I used to teach this to local students every year at Christmas. I will admit, this method is very conservative, but conservative is a good starting point. You will get braver as you grow more comfortable with the process. Eventually, you can deviate to make some wild but beautiful color palettes. So let's start simple with our red and green Christmas colors. First, ask yourself, what's the overall feeling for the image? So, do you want the final project to look soft and delicate or bold and brassy? Setting the mood ahead of time helps guide your color choices. Think about it. We have an infinite number of colors to choose from. Knowing that I want something soft and classic helps me narrow down the choices to a more manageable list of only soft options. Make life easier. Eliminate all the party colors if that's not what you're going for. Okay, so I want classic and understated, and I'm starting with green and red. Next, we have a choice. Which color do you want to be the superstar? My favorite color is red, but I know from experience that it's hard to make red mellow and yet have it still read as red. I don't want pink and I don't want peach for Christmas. I also don't want blood or wine, so I'm going to stick with traditional red, R46. But red has a loud voice. Luckily, green is a more forgiving color. Green can go lighter or darker, and yet it still reads as green. Okay, so green has more potential to be mellow, which means that my project should be mostly green with just a pop of red. I'm shooting for 60% green, and this is going to make the green the structural foundation of my project. Now let's modify the green. We can slide the green towards yellow, moving it into the lime and chartreuse area, but I just colored a red and YG Christmas project, so let's go for the opposite. Now, I happen to love red with aqua. That's like my all-time favorite color combination, and it's a good idea. but I still want this to read as Christmassy and not so much like a 1950s diner. So let's choose a BG color with a stronger G than B. BG75 is good. But now look here. R46, that ends in a 6, so that's a mid-value red. BG75, that ends in a 5, and it's also a mid-value color. That's too much of the same value. It does help that the red is clean and saturated, while this BG is a bit grayed and dirty, so it's not a total clash, but I do want to limit the two similar values. I don't really want them sitting side by side fighting with each other. So let's shift the BG lighter or maybe darker. BG70 would make a great background color, and since I want to color a few of these ornaments as transparent, they're basically going to be BG70 too. And I could also use BG78 in other areas. All right, this is looking good. Now let's add a neutral. It could be black, white, gray, brown. Navy blue works like a neutral too. Okay, all right, this is too nautical for me today, but I do like it. No, let's go back to the white because I'm thinking snowballs would be cute. So snowballs would be white with like a light cool gray. Yeah, I kind of like this. Now, normally this might be enough, but I have a lot of ornaments to color. So let's add a metallic. Metallics are basically neutrals with attitude. I usually do a lot of silver at Christmas. It reminds me of my mother's antique silverware and serving dishes at Christmas dinner. But silver will drag attention away from my snowball idea. So let's do gold. And remember, when I searched earlier, I was seeing a lot of that soft, natural, almost antique gold. Brass and copper could also be options. Well, okay, maybe not copper with the red, but copper would be awesome with all green ornaments. And there you go. From nothing, we have built a color palette. But will it work? This is where the color studies come in. I kind of like it, but even if I didn't, we could head back up and make a few changes. What if we go with true aqua, not the dirty version that I chose? Okay, this is fun and festive. What if we kept the green but changed the red to rose? Oh, this is very vintage. Let's flip it upside down and make red the structural color. I kind of like this. Not enough color? You could start with 3 colors instead of 2. There's that nautical, almost preppy vibe that I really liked earlier. What about a wild card? Oh my gosh, I love this. What I've showed you here today is a framework. It's basically a decision tree to organize the process. And I didn't cover half the directions we could have gone. Not every color palette that you create this way is going to knock your socks off, but it's a start. And often you just need the start to get going. It's hard to look at 358 markers and pick the best 5. Use this method to kind of narrow it down. On the resource page for this video, I will put a link to a free PDF that you can download, and that'll walk you through the whole process again. Now remember, I streamlined everything here for this video. I made it logical and I did it fast for teaching purposes. But that ain't real life. In reality, I've been doing this method for so long now that it mostly happens higgledy-piggledy inside my head as I'm staring at the wall with my jaw hanging open. Then I work out the kinks when I scribble little color studies on tiny scraps of paper. But that's how I do it, and that's what works for me. This will get you started, and getting started is the hardest part. For a peek at some of the other things I think about as I'm staring at the wall, see my video about the problem with red and green Christmas colors here.